You cannot have your cake and eat it too. Hell no. That's the first red flag. I have a long definition of what the 4B movement is. This is a movement that women are practicing because they want out. This is not a target at men or the pick-me patriarchs that coddle them.
Oh, fuck.
Pick-me patriarchs. But yeah, women who participate in it are choosing to opt out of the patriarchy. Good morning, you guys. Today is a interesting, valuable subject and message that I received and that I am willing to share with you all. We are discussing the book of Esther and how she relates to the 4B movement. I'm going to be talking about Esther and Queen Vashti that is mentioned in the book of Esther, but I am going to give my own definition of what I believe the 4B movement is. I have a long definition of what the 4B movement is, what patriarchy means to me, and what a pick-me patriarch is. I watched a lot of videos and read just quite a few articles on the 4B movement alone. By simply Googling what the 4B movement is, or even looking on TikTok, it'll show you exactly what the 4B movement entails.
Yeah, so this patriarchy stuff that we've kind of been going along with, it's harming us. So I think we're done.
I do want to shout out another black-owned business. This particular business is Plant-Based Heat in Memphis, Tennessee. They are a plant-based restaurant.
I bet y'all think this is a Philly cheesesteak, right? Nope. The meat is actually pecans, and you can find it right here in Memphis, Tennessee at Plant-Based Heat. The owner had to come out and give me samples. These are meatless chitlins, y'all. Y'all, I had a vegan Philly cheesesteak, and the meat was made from pecans. Evan had a portobello mushroom burger. Overall, y'all, this is something I would definitely come back and try again, but I may try something different.
If you're in the Memphis area, Tennessee area, or even if you want to visit Memphis, then I would highly suggest to go and give them your support. I'm going to start with what 4B movement entails and what a movement is in general. Movements in general, they are created with a definition, with a purpose. Most of the times they are backed up with actions that support that movement due to restrictions and laws put on their bodies created by men with and without power and status. Certain men have created a morality around what women should do and what women should look like. In the same sentence, they bring about laws that do not serve women but serve their needs. This is a movement that women are practicing because they want out. Of what, you may ask? Women want out of the harmful effects of patriarchy and the abandonment that comes with it. Since the beginning of time, romance has been a facade for years, and women are realizing that everything that is supposed to benefit us actually benefits the opposite sex. I'm young and have yet to see the biggest P, but I don't want to. I'm not a follower, but I can see where these women are coming from, and I can see what this movement entails just by watching videos and reading a plethora of articles. This is not a target at men or the pick-me patriarchs that coddle them. This is a target at the patriarchy that is deeply ingrained in this country alone. If you knowingly or even unknowingly benefit from the patriarchy, stand up and unlearn those detrimental behaviors. Sir, I'm going to relate and analyze the book of Esther and relate it to the 4B movement, because there's a woman in particular that shows that she wants out of the patriarchy. Her actions portray that in the book. I'm going to mention that after I finish the definitions. If we don't know already, it is a system or systems governed and ran by men that tends to exclude women. It tends to have harmful effects, controlling aspects, and behaviors on women who do not benefit from it. Some women have chosen to play right along with the patriarchy by creating this movement. Some women play right along with the patriarchy in a different way by ensuring there is financial security first and then moving forward with whatever. Women are saying no more. No more will I tolerate disrespect with a smile on my face while men keep antagonizing us.
4B movement. I'll just never be done being proud of your generation and doing what we should have done.
I lived my life like a man. Got my own place. Date who I want, when I want, go on vacation, do this, do that. Do it.
Hell no. They're choosing to either opt out of the patriarchy and just removing themselves, period. Or there are some women who choose to stay and thrive and get their coin while they're in it. I applaud both sides. Do what you have to do. Do what you want to do at that. Now the definition of a pick-me patriarch. They coddle men. Whatever man is in sight, whether it be a male figure, boyfriends, boy toy, whatever, she meets their every need. They call other women females. They seem to not have an idea of their own. It has to be what a man has already said or done. They agree with whatever a man says, and they are deeply controlled by societal standards of what a woman should and should not look like and what behaviors a woman should not demonstrate. They tend to copy a lot as well. Chapter 1 of Esther, it has three main characters, and that is Queen Vashti, Queen Esther, and King A or King Ahasuerus. The king is celebrating his 3rd year of his reign, and he reigns over 127 provinces from India to Kush. So he has a lot of people that he has to look over. High status, I would say, according to the text. And Queen Vashti, she's mentioned in verse 9. But in verse 11 is where I related the 4B movement to her, Queen Vashti, based off of her actions. Well, I'm going to start with verse 10. On the 7th day, when the king was feeling good from the wine, King A commanded his 7 eunuchs or employees who personally served him to bring Queen Vashti before him with her royal crown. He wanted to show off her beauty to the people and the officials because she was very beautiful. Now verse 12. But Queen Vashti refused to come at the king's command that was delivered by her eunuchs. The king became furious and his anger burned with him. This point of the text, we have to remember what the 4B movement is and what it entails. Now, the 4B movement was mentioned even in this book before there were any labels being put on those types of actions. Those actions that women portrayed that were quote unquote disrespectful to men, they were just called disrespectful just by refusing to come at king's commands. No matter how harsh or controlling the king was, those women were just called bitter and ungodly, and they were just called every other name in the book other than their names and whatever status they held. Verse 11 and 12 really demonstrates the 4B movement. Queen V, she's no longer wanting to be shown as a sexual object. She refused to come at the king's command because verse 11 tells us that King A sent out his own employees to fetch his own wife just to show off her body and her beautiful face. First red flag on the play, and I am the referee. The first red flag. King A sends his eunuchs to go get his own wife. As a king, go get your own woman. Don't send your own employees to go and fetch your own wife. It gives off like she's locked away in a dungeon somewhere and he has to send his employees to go and get her. Go get her yourself if you want to show off her body and show off her beautiful face. Second red flag. King A, he only wants to show off Queen Vashti's body and her beautiful face. And the type of energy that it gives like, okay, here's the object that cooks everything I need her to cook. Here's the object that I control. Here's the sexual object that I get off on. Here's the object that is available when my neighbor isn't available. Here's the object that makes sure I does this and makes sure I does that. This is patriarchal, very controlling. You're excluding your woman when your woman should already be in your presence. You're excluding her, but yet and still you want her body. You can't have both. You cannot have your cake and eat it too. These actions alone of King A prove that he is disrespectful to his own woman and that he has a patriarchal mindset. He's controlling to both his puppets or his eunuchs or employees and to Queen Vashti. He thrives off of validation from his officials and from his employees. This sacred text, it states clear as day that women are only useful for sexual interactions. And this is only in Esther, the book of Esther. What does that tell a young woman or women in general, or even young girls who go to these institutions and they hear teachers teach this certain book of the Bible? What does it teach young girls, whether they are 5 years old, 10 years old, 15 years old, 20 years old, 25 years old? What does that teach us? To me, it teaches us that my body is the only thing that a man will want me for, especially if this is supposed to be the end all be all. We're supposed to abide by everything that this sacred book tells us. I call bullshit. It's not that I'm a non-believer. I still do believe in God. The ways that women are being shown off in this book alone, it just shows us that we are only objects. It doesn't state that women are objects. It beats around the bush of that. Women are not to be controlled. Women are not objects. Women are divine beings who can stand alone. Can the opposite sex do that? Can the opposite sex stand alone? This book says otherwise. I know, just like many of other people know, that this book has been translated to fit a certain patriarchal narrative. I don't think it will be translated again because it has already set the standard that most people follow. Like I said, I called BS earlier because this is not of God. This text that has been translated, it does not align with God. In my opinion, the real God wants women to see their divinity without other figures. The real God does not disrespect women in the slightest. The real God shows us that by mentioning Queen Vashti in this text and by demonstrating and showing us that she was assertive and that she was headstrong. The real God wants women to find their divinity in their own ideologies and behaviors by not conforming in a man's standards that he placed on a woman. The real God doesn't want a woman to become a man's property either. I believe that with everything in me. I really do believe that wholeheartedly, y'all. So now I'm going to keep reading. And after Queen Vashti has refused to come at the king's command, the next subject or the next title is the king's decree. This is still in chapter 1. The king consulted the wise men who understood the times. I highlighted who understood the times because King A, he's like, okay, what should I do with this woman? What should I do with my now ex-wife who wouldn't let me see her body? Who wouldn't give me her body to show off to the officials and the staff? What are we going to do with her? He consulted and other men who understood the times. Understood the times to me means men who also upheld the patriarchy. Other men who would also like a hand in controlling their own women. King A resulted in Queen Vashti not being able to even enter his presence, and for her royal position to be given to another woman who is more worthy than she. By Queen Vashti refusing to come at the king's command, she is not worthy of his presence anymore. This is a win-win for her anyway. The decree the king issues will be heard throughout his vast kingdom. So all women will honor their husbands from the least to the greatest. That was verse 20. You're a king. The qualities that you portray in this book, you shouldn't be honored. The kings, they're only honored when they have great qualities. Of course, they can learn those qualities, but in this particular book, they are sticking with these controlling aspects. They're sticking with the patriarchy. They're continuously benefiting and participating in it. So of course Queen Vashti is gonna back out. She shouldn't have to honor a man who does not honor her, period. To chapter 2. Chapter 2 is titled In Search for a New Queen. And off the title alone, off rip, King A, knows in the back of his mind that there cannot be masculine energy without feminine energy. That he cannot be successful without a woman by his side. We know that because of how instantly he goes and searches for someone else to be by his side instead of standing alone, changing his narrative on things, and then finding a wife. He wants to find one instantly. It says, sometime later, when King A's rage had cooled down, he remembered Vashti, what she had done, and what was decided against her. The king's personal attendants suggested, let a personal search be made for beautiful young virgins. Just the wording is really disgusting to me. It has in quotes, let a search be made for beautiful young virgins. Just that wording, it rubs me the wrong way. The question that popped up in my head was like, how are they going to determine who's a virgin and who's not? How are they going to do that? Are they just going to ask every man if they've been with this woman, or are they just going to see for themselves? Now on to verse 3. It says, let the king appoint commissioners in each province of his kingdom, so that they may assemble all the beautiful young virgins to the harem at the fortress of Susa. Put them under the care of Haggai, the king's eunuch, who is in charge of the women, and give them the required beauty treatments. And I'm assuming the required beauty treatments are enhancements that make the younger women look older, but I underline, give them the required beauty treatments. I noted beside that this is where standards were placed on women because of the beauty treatments and the beauty requirements that those women that were lined up to be King A's next wife had to have. Then here's verse 4. Then the young woman who pleases the king will reign in place of Vashti. This suggestion pleased the king, and he did accordingly. Is whatever young woman pleases King A the best, that is who will be in place of Vashti. And the fact that the king was pleased with that decision, it says a lot about the qualities of a king and how he sees himself. Wording in chapter 2 alone, verses 1 through 4, it's iffy. You can most definitely tell that all of this was translated, or at least majority of it, not the settings and most likely not the names either, but the actions and the characteristics that whoever translated this book wanted a king to have, or wanted someone in positions of power to have. If we're not dense, if we're not living under a rock, then we know exactly the type of man who translated this book. We know. We most definitely know. I do want to say that King A is not the end all be all for a man. There are a lot of men in this life who do not have the qualities of King A. There are a lot of women who do not have the qualities of Esther. There are people in this world who would rather do the opposite of what King A and what Queen Esther are doing in the actions that they portray that do further push the narrative of the patriarchy. There are a lot of people who do not agree with what they are doing, and the people who translated this book and the people who translated this book to fit a patriarchal narrative, they made sure that certain parts of it was controlling and certain parts of it did fit that patriarchal narrative. Now this is where Esther really comes in at around verse 7 of chapter 2, and it reads, Mordecai was the legal guardian of his cousin Esther because she didn't have a mother or a father. The young woman had a beautiful figure and was extremely good looking. When her father and mother died, Mordecai had adopted her as his own daughter. So Mordecai is another character that is introduced. He is Esther's cousin, so he adopted Esther. I'm assuming because he adopted Esther, Esther is a minor. That alone tells that Esther was a victim. There are a lot of men, especially men in positions of power and with status, love it if the times went back to biblical times. Esther not even having a mother or a father figure and being adopted by her own cousin, meaning she had no other mentors from other family members as well. She was a perfect match for King A. Women with no male or woman figures in their lives, they tend to look for love in the wrong places. This can happen to a man as well. They can look for love in the wrong places. 9 times out of 10 they settle. And even women and men with mother and father figures in their lives, they can even settle and they can even look for love in the wrong places. If that emotional security is not present from jump from either mother or father figure, then women and men tend to learn too late, or they tend to learn on their own. But while they are doing such, they just go off of vibes and in the hopes of learning. Now on to verse 9. It says, "The young woman pleased him and gained his favor, so that he accelerated the process of the beauty treatments and the special diet that she received." Sadly, that same standard is being placed on women today with the small waists, the big goodies. It only fits the male gaze anyway. It's not for the woman, it's for the man. And it shows it all up and through this text. All up and through there. So, with that being said, I am going to end the video out by reading an excerpt from this Time newsletter article by Miss Ashley Ross. She published this on March 23rd of 2016. It talks about how Queen Vashti was called a sublime representative of self-centered womanhood who rises to the heights of self-consciousness and of self-respect. It also talks about how Esther's character was also full compliance with the patriarchy, which it really was, only because of the type of man that she had to be placed beside. She was a full-on victim who took on the patriarchal ideologies, and it was up to her whether or not she wanted to take a stand against him, which she did later on in the book though. So that is all for this particular video. Thank you all for tuning in. Thank you all for engaging, liking, commenting, and leaving your subscription. I really do think this was some valuable information. I wouldn't have brought it to you all if it wasn't. I really needed to hear this message as well. I also want to say this before I close out. Do not let the characters in this book determine the type of person that you would like to be or the type of people that you associate with. The people in this book are not the end all be all. I really do feel like the real and true God demonstrates these characters just to show us who to be like and who not to be like. All in all, of course, we have to be ourselves. Most of these characters that a lot of people look up to and that a lot of people are taught to be like, they do portray patriarchal behaviors which can be detrimental to women and men who do not point it out and recognize it. So, like I stated before, King A and his patriarchal systematic way of believing, it does not have to be like that for every man. By Esther being a pick-me patriarch, it does not have to be that way for every woman either. So I did just want to include that particular part so I wouldn't mislead anyone. So yeah, I will see y'all in the next video. Bye.